Let's talk to Steve, who is in Fall River. Hi, Steve.
How are you?
Good, Steve. How are you?
I feel like you downplayed the talent level of the Miami receivers and you overplayed what the coaches did. And I think a lot of people are doing that, and that's leading them to think we're going to solve all the problems the New England Patriots have by bringing in different coordinators to run this offense. And I think it's time to quantify what these two sides of the ball are. And I'll start with my quantification. The coaching in the NFL is, out of the four major sports, the most impactful. But I think it only represents 20% of the product on the field. I think the players represent 80%, and the quarterback represents a boatload of that 80%. So we've got a quarterback here, Mac Jones, who's, going into his third year. We hope he becomes Daniel Jones with good coaching and a better roster. But you have to have guys that can play. And if it's on your offense, you have to have playmakers.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for the call, Steve. I agree. You do have to have playmakers. With that said, the quarterback makes up a big percentage of it. Yeah, that's true. But Tua Tagovailoa wasn't some great quarterback. He wasn't some game-breaking quarterback. He was a first, second-year guy who was kind of struggling to find his way and dealing with injuries. And, he had Waddle last year, and Waddle, I think, set the rookie receptions record. So, it's not like it was totally different. The big difference was, Tyreek Hill obviously was a big one too, but the coach came in and completely revamped that whole offense and made it into something totally unrecognizable from the Brian Flores offense. Come on, it's not even close. And again, Tyreek Hill is a big factor into that. Of course he is, but he's one guy. And it wasn't just him. It wasn't just Tyreek Hill running, go routes or running across the middle of the field. It's different in this Miami offense. It's completely different. And I think that to sort of dismiss that is dismissing a big chunk. That being said, it takes more than just coaching. He's right about that. You do need to put the players there. And the Patriots, I'm not sure, are committed to that. I'm not sure that they're committed to doing what it takes to get a Tyreek Hill in here or a wide receiver of that caliber. I don't think that they really value those type of players that much. Historically, they haven't.
So it's interesting to me because I know Tommy Curran, when he was on here with us the other day, he's been banging this drum that they don't have to do that much else at wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Like re-sign Jacoby Myers, which I feel like they should to keep that production on the team, and kind of a sure thing at receiver that they should re-sign him, even if it's, $10 million a year, $11 million a year. I don't know about $12 million a year, but in that ballpark, they should do it.
I go to 12. I go to 15 for Myers. I would.
There you go. So you're all in.
I think he's worth that. If it was, if you're trying to keep him and not have him sign away to another team, I think his market could get up to 15.
But I feel like, Steve, the caller's underlying point there was that the talent that they have in Miami with the receivers is so far away from the talent that you have here in New England. And I'm not sure if that's totally true. Like, I know it looked that way completely this year, but I don't think we can underscore enough how much that's tied to the coordinator. It really is. And I know you can say that coaching is only this percent or that percent, but when I look at the numbers from some of the receivers who you assume are going to be here again next year and who are going to be high up on the depth chart, like Devontae Parker, only 539 yards, 31 catches. Kendrick Bourne, 434 yards. This was a guy who I think a lot of us predicted to have a 1,000-yard season. And I just don't think that this year demonstrates who those guys can be. Maybe that's a little pie in the sky, a little optimistic, but I really feel that way. I really feel like the pendulum's going to swing if they're here, and you assume that they're going to be here, much further in the other direction than what we saw this year. And maybe they're not going to be Tyreek Hill. Like, you can look at those guys and say they don't have that natural speed. Most receivers don't.
Right.
And maybe you feel like they need to go out and get somebody like that. I mean, you have a speedster in Tyquan Thornton, but I don't think that they're those guys. I don't think that Kendrick Bourne is a 434-yard guy. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's like half of what he did last year.
It's funny. They're interviewing Sean Jefferson today, and in some ways, I sort of feel like he'd be a perfect guy on this team because all the wide receivers are kind of like Sean Jefferson. You know what I mean? Like Kendrick Bourne is sort of like Sean Jefferson-y.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a little bit of him in Devontae Parker. You know, you remember Jefferson, like he didn't put up huge numbers. He'd give you like 700-800 yards. That's about like a Jacoby Myers season. Like all these guys are very Sean Jefferson-y, you know? Like I feel like there's a lot of that in this wide receiver room. Now, does that mean that you want to bring in a receiver like that and have them run the offense? Maybe. I'd prefer to upgrade. Like no diss to Sean Jefferson. I liked him a lot when I was a kid, and I thought he was a great player. But you know, you wanted them to have somebody else. You know, you'd feel good about that, but then you'd really want Jerry Rice or Randy Moss or Chris Carter or Tim Brown or one of those guys. Back in the 90s, Jesus.
Knocking water over there.
Luckily, the cap was on. But, yeah.
Sean Jefferson
No cap.
never had a 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
A lot of targets, though. Where he was getting targeted a lot.
And he was
over
reliable.
100 twice?
Caught a lot of balls and was a reliable target there on those teams in the 90s, on those Bledsoe teams. So, like, there's a role for guys like that, obviously. It's just that's all the Patriots have. All the Patriots have is a bunch of Sean Jeffersons. And, eventually you want to have somebody who's just a little bit more of a game breaker. That's
I
all.
also feel that it's okay if you want the Patriots to go out and get a star wide receiver because you want to watch a star wide receiver every week in your team's uniform.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like people dance around that a little bit because they're like, well, this is how other teams win and this is the development of the quarterback. And you can make those cases, but you can also make the case of it's just a lot more fun to watch guys like that play, to watch Stephon Diggs play, to watch Justin Jefferson play. Like, Devontae Adams when
It's
the
true.
Raiders can get something going, to see those guys play in your uniform. That's okay, too. It's just, I don't know if that's one of the top priorities for your offense in this offseason.
I'd say in the last 3 Super Bowl winners all had game-breaking wide receivers. Cooper Kupp last year. You had Tampa Bay with all the guys they had.
Godwin,
with Evans and Godwin.
Gronk.
And then
Antonio
Tyreek Hill
Brown.
was Tyreek Hill in 2020 with the Chiefs. I mean, that's the last 3 years. Those are the last 3 teams. They all had game-breaking, historic wide receiver play.
And I know
it's just the way it is.
You said it, under your breath, but I agree with you, Megan. And before he went completely off his rocker, there was a really, really high level of intrigue when the Patriots did go out and sign Antonio Brown. It's like, yes, finally, this is the best guy, the best wide receiver that Tom Brady's probably had since Randy Moss. Oh, they are going to destroy. And it looked really promising for that 1 week that he played here, but that's just it. And by the way, look at, yes, it would be a lot of fun to have a star receiver, but again, the obvious, look at what Stephon Diggs has done for Josh Allen. Look at what Tyreek Hill has done for Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Jefferson. I mean, there's a reason that the Vikings played as well as they did this year. It's just like that one piece, unless they figure out how to use Devontae Parker, because I don't think they were using him right early on in the season. But yeah, I completely agree.
Devontae Parker, I think, has that kind of potential. I think that we saw
there's something there. There's
when
something
Kendrick
there
Bourne,
with that guy.
Last year, I think Kendrick Bourne, we sort of thought the next step for him would be maybe a 1,000-yard season after he 800 yards with a rookie quarterback. Like, there was reason to think that would get better. I think at this point in the NFL, and I know the Patriots got along a long time and won a lot of championships without this per se, but at this point in the NFL with a quarterback who's not Tom Brady, these are the things you need to do. These are the things you need to do to elevate your QB play and your offense play. And instead, they did the polar opposite of that. They brought in a coach who didn't know what he was doing and didn't bring in any big wide receivers. Let's go to the phone. 617-779-7937. There's your number. Nate's in the truck. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing?
You're absolutely right with the receivers. I mean, we talk about you got to score more than 30 points to win these games. What do you think that's going to be on the heels of? Not a running back. It's going to be on a top receiver. You got to look at all these offenses. The KC's with Juju Smith-Schuster to Kelsey to Joe Burrow with Chase and Higgins. This day and age of like defense is going to win championships and only defenses. That's not what today's NFL is nowadays. You got to get at least a number 1 or number 2. In this Patriots offense, you've got number 3s and 4s, and that's just not going to make it.
Yeah, Nate, thanks for the call, and you're absolutely right. And just look at these teams playing in the division round. The Jaguars spent big on Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs, they don't have great wide receivers, but they went out and signed Smith-Schuster.
They also have
They have a really good tight
maybe
end,
the best
though.
quarterback in the whole league.
Best quarterback for sure, but I'm just talking about, do you need these type of players to win? And I think you do. The Eagles, I can't even measure the impact that A.J. Brown's had on that team. The Bills, the Bengals,
say,
the Niners, and Cowboys. Everybody except the Giants really has elite level wide receiver
out
play.
of the teams that you watch this weekend in the divisional round, watch the Eagles. I think it's so interesting what they did in their offseason with Jalen Hurts because in a really similar position where they really didn't know whether they should go in on Jalen Hurts or not, and a different kind of quarterback than Mac, but getting A.J. Brown, getting an offensive coordinator in there, I believe also his third in 3 years or something along those lines, maybe the second in 3 years, but I think the third. And he's been through a lot of offensive coordinators in college and such. And look at them now. Like, they figured it out. They turn it around, and they're in a really great position. And so we talk about, what like Cincy did with Joe Burrow and what Buffalo did with Steph Diggs.
Yep.
And I just think that's a really interesting test case.
I think so, too. I think that the Niners with Deebo Samuel, the Cowboys drafted CeeDee Lamb. I mean, there's been a lot of instances where they just hit in the draft. And, the Bengals, I mean, they had Jamar Chase, who was the number one. But, for a lot of these teams, they hit in the draft. The Eagles drafted Devontae Smith. He was an Alabama guy. They hit a home run with him. And now they have, through the trade and through their drafting, a wide receiver room that's right up there. I mean, those two, you look at their numbers.
They had 2,000-yard receivers this year.
They're unbelievable. Those two are unbelievable
in
this
points
year.
scored, the Eagles went from 12th place to 3rd place, and I think a lot of that has to do with what they were able to do with A.J. Brown. Because, by the way, while the Patriots were getting the doors blown off in the wild card last year, guess who else looked like complete trash and like they did not belong whatsoever? It was the Philadelphia Eagles. They got smoked by Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I mean, that game was never close. They had some garbage time touchdown at the end, but it's just, I don't know if it's a mental block with this team as far as, defense is going to win. Guess what? The Patriots scored over 30 points one time this year. And it was against the Cleveland Browns.
And who was quarterbacking that game? I forget. Who was it?
Zappi.
It was Bailey Zappi. That's right. It was
Bailey
Bailey Zappi who had the 130-plus point game.
So, you know what? I take it back. They don't need to get a top-line wide receiver.
You know what?
They just got to play Zappi. That's all.
Zappi.
I would love to just be in the position next year with the Patriots where instead of where we are now, it's like the Jalen Hurts conversation where people is Jalen Hurts really this good? Is Jalen Hurts just a fraud? Is Jalen Hurts just a product of the environment he's in? Kind of closer to where we were with Mac last year, instead of just oh my God, is it going to be going back into the draft again? Should they bring Jimmy Garoppolo in a bloated contract? Should they, are they going to do these pick swaps, whatever? It's just, can you at least get back to the fraud conversation? Can you get back to that standard of is this a product of the environment of Foxborough rather than is the Patriot way dead? Because it feels like that's where we're at.
It feels like it's on life support at the very least. And, you have a new team with a lot of new players in it and guys that just got here. Guys that either just got drafted recently and are now asked to play an important role in the team, like quarterback and other big positions, or you're talking about free agents who just signed for big money and are here now and maybe aren't super impressed with what they're seeing so far and don't really love the direction that their career is going in now that they've joined the New England Patriots. When has that ever been a thing before? That was the Patriot way. That was a big part of it. That was a big part of the allure and the mystique and sort of everything. These free agents and these other players that they brought in, even if they drafted one. And, they didn't seem like right away the player was catching on. Well, you just wait till that second year, and now all of a sudden Damian Harris is the starting running back, and now all of a sudden, who knows? But it just doesn't happen like that anymore.
God,
now,
Bill Belichick would wax poetic over offensive players in their second year. Specifically, I remember him talking about how big Philip Dorsett was going to be his second year with the system. Here we go. We are living in the Phil Dorsett era. I mean, look at Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne was sitting on a golf cart with Mike Reese talking about how dope the new system was, and everybody knows their role, and they're going to put us in a position to succeed, to being in Matt Patricia's effing doghouse for 60% of the year because, I don't know, he had a problem with how they were trying to run this Shanahan offense, which they inevitably threw out. Let Kendrick cook.
yeah, maybe let him run the offense.